Okay, welcome back to the Sullen Socialist. It's an interesting topic for this little excerpt, and it's about one of the problems that we have in society, and it's to do with economics. And I've touched on the economic system in one of my earlier videos, and you should go back and look at that. It's worth watching. I probably don't explain myself very well. You will get the gist if you pay attention to what I'm trying to say. And what I'm saying is true, and it is accurate in my interpretation of what's going on with the economic system. Now, the other thing that comes up, and this is not about one system. This applies everywhere. It is in the United States, in Australia, in the UK. It's one of the things that led to Brexit. In Europe, it happens everywhere. And government, industry, and the mainstream media scapegoating groups of people to find a way to keep the current economic system moving along one way or another. And they're finding more and more creative ways to keep the system afloat, because the system as it stands now is not sustainable. It's just not. It cannot keep going the way that it's going in any of the major countries. There are a few that have got it a little bit better. A lot of the more socialist orientated countries such as Sweden, Finland, Norway especially, Holland, have got a better system in place and are much more likely to survive the last throes of capitalism and the things that they're doing to try and keep their system afloat. And the place where I'm going with this is what they do to keep the general population at a distance from actually attacking the problem, which is the system, is they give them a scapegoat. And for the majority of the time, it's the illegal immigrants or immigrants in general, especially in places like Australia, in places like the UK, it's just immigrants. And in the US, they're attacking illegal immigrants. In Europe, they illegal immigrants because a lot of immigrants are coming in from the Middle East, especially where it's been war ravaged due to US bombings and civil unrest and other problems created mostly by Western industrialized countries. And we're copying the problems that relate to that. So they blame the immigrants. They blame the unemployed. They blame the social security system, the social safety nets. They blame government handouts. They blame absolutely everything except the system. Now, in an earlier video, I talked about immigration. They complain about illegal immigration and undocumented workers in the US, and they're rounding up all these thousands of undocumented workers, putting them in camps. Why aren't the employers going to jail? It's a good question, and nobody's talking about this. I won't say nobody. There are 2 or 3 people like me who are independent broadcasters. Kim Iverson is an excellent presenter. She's touched on it. Richard Wolf's touched on it. He's one of my favourites as well. And they've mentioned this problem, that they're going after the immigrants and they're telling everybody, oh, it's the immigrants' fault. The problems with the economy, it's the immigrants, it's the unemployed, it's the homeless, it's absolutely everybody except the employers and the system. And this is where they're getting everybody. And I'm astounded that after all these years, because I've known this since I was in my 20s, I worked this out. And yet there are people still going along today that still haven't worked this out, and it's not being touched on. That this is exploited. and it's exploited to keep people fighting a common enemy or fighting another enemy. But it's not the real enemy. These people are not the problem. If you got rid of every illegal worker in the United States, the economy would probably collapse, because a lot of the jobs that these people do, Americans just wouldn't do it. You have the same thing in Australia. They talk about jobs and things like that, but the Australians don't want to do the jobs a lot of the migrants are doing. These people will do these jobs. They're the base jobs, they're the cleaning jobs, the janitorial jobs, the sweeping jobs. And I'm not being derogatory about migrants. So I have the utmost respect for nearly all migrants, because contrary to popular belief, migrants will work. They say, oh, these are the criminals, they come in, they commit crimes. No, that's a lie. It's complete bull. They do not do that. These people come and they work. They work damn hard. And in places like the United States, not only do they work, they pay taxes. These people are paying more taxes than people like Jeff Bezos. So he's the richest man in the world, yet these undocumented workers who are being attacked and criticised and jailed and ostracised pay more taxes and contribute more to United States society than somebody like Bezos. Yet they are constantly attacked. And this is what the employers, the politicians, the mainstream media, all doing the same thing. They point you at this false enemy and get you angry and fighting at these people, and it's not their fault. It's got nothing to do with them. These are people, they're like you, they're like me, the majority of them are good, hard-working, decent, honest people. I'm not saying that they all are, because they're not. Just like everywhere else, there are good, there are bad. And there are bad among them, but they are a really, really, really small percentage. We're talking like 0.01% or 0.1%. It's a tiny proportion of the people who are coming into the countries that turn to criminality. And in countries like the US, it's probably marginally higher. But if you look at the underlying reasons, it's understandable. Now, you go to a country like Australia, where we have a very strong social safety net. We have good policies, and most of Europe is the same. If you apply for asylum or you migrate to Australia and you are accepted into the country, you are entitled to all the benefits that an Australian resident is. So you get Social Security benefits, you get unemployment benefits, you get housing allowances, you get payments to help you get started and get established. So there's no need for you to turn to crime unless you're that way inclined, which again, like I said, there is a very small percentage, but it is tiny proportionally compared to the amount of people coming in. The majority will take that little advantage, that little bit of help that they're given, and they will find a job, they'll get a house, they'll take care of their family, and they do really well. The majority of them do really well. And it's the same in the United States. The majority of these workers, and even worse there, because they do not have access to these services. And I know it's a really strong Republican talking point. Oh, these migrants, they're coming in, they're taking your welfare, they're taking your Medicare, they're taking... No, they're not. They're undocumented. They have no documentation. They have no rights whatsoever to get any benefits, and they can't access these services. So the services that the Republicans keep claiming that these migrants are stealing from you, they don't even have access to. So it's a lie. It's just a lie. And all they're doing is trying to distract you and keep you away from the system and the problems with the system that are actually at fault. You've got executives, CEOs, raking in, what was the GM, $22 million bonus or $22 million salary. I mean, that's just obscene. Nobody needs that much money for doing a job like running a company. I mean, okay, yeah, it might be a big company. They might be making a lot of money, but they don't need that kind of money. The company's making so many billions in profit, they could be paying their workers more wages. There's no problem with that. And this is the problem. This is where the problems in the system lie. But the system is propped up and protected by the politicians who are paid off by these corporations to do so. Now, in countries like Australia, it is much more discreet, but it goes on. In the US, it's very open, it's very blatant, it is documented, and you can see. I've talked, again, in an earlier video, I talked about the Almanac of American Politics. You can go to this document and you can find which people donated to which politicians and which way those politicians voted on a particular bill. It is in black and white. It is written. You can see what they did, how corrupt they are, because they take money from people and then vote for bills that favour the people who've given them money. And it is crystal clear. Anyone who can't see that, you're just kidding yourself. Okay? Nobody else. You're fooling yourself. The problem is the system. And the system cannot keep going the way it's going. It just can't. In places like the US, it is much worse because you do not have the underlying safety net that countries in Europe do, that Australia does, that the UK does. You don't have that system set up to help people who are having a rough time. Not saying that these systems are perfect, but they are much better, whereas in the US, you do not have those systems set up to help you. It's a much more of a free-for-all kind of system. If you don't have a job, like at the moment there, a lot of work, a lot of things being said about homelessness. And again, it's insane. People, very, very few people choose to live on the streets. They don't choose to live in their cars. Circumstances and situations have made it that way. Punishing them is just making the situation worse. It's not helping anybody. And if anything, again, capitalist system, you're putting more and more money into the pockets of the rich because you penalise them, you take away their possessions, you put them in jail, which is putting more money into the system. And as a lot of places have worked out now, it's actually cheaper to house them and to give them a basic wage than it is to criminalise what they're doing, the homelessness. So we need to look at the system. The system needs to change. The greed has to stop. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some kind of inequality. I'm not saying that some people shouldn't earn more money for certain jobs than others. That's not what I would argue whatsoever. I think that a degree of inequality is a good thing and it's an incentive, but it has to be reined in a little bit. You look at the top 1%, the top 10%, the top 20%. If you halved their wealth, every single one of them, halved their wealth, they'd still be insanely rich. There's no, like, go back 30 years, 40 years when the tax rates were 70, 80, 90%. You still had rich people. The money will get to the rich people. But the more hands that it passes through on the way to those people, the better it is for all of society. And this is what people like myself, people like Bernie Sanders, argue more towards of Jeremy Corbyn's, and want to have more control and more restrictions on capitalism. And this is what has to happen. The unfettered capitalism, it just can't go. It is not a sustainable system. And it cannot keep going the way that it's going. It has to change. And by higher taxes, wealth distribution is a good way to do it. It's a simple way to do it. So if you're taking away, taxing higher money on corporations on their profits, put it high. That's fine. Make it in the 10 million plus. That's okay, because these people are making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. They need to be taxed because the money that they get doesn't go back into society. It doesn't contribute to anything. You give a working person $1,000, that $1,000 goes back into the economy. You give a rich person $1,000, it goes in a bank account in Bermuda and it'll never be seen again. So this is where the difference lies. And this is what the smart people want to do with the system. They want to put higher taxes on for the rich people, higher taxes on corporations, restrict them a lot more on what they can do, put higher wages for workers. Giving people more money is a good thing. Again, something I've talked about in previous videos. People having more money is a good thing for the economy. Giving tax cuts to billionaires does not do anything for the economy. Does nothing for the economy. Giving tax cuts to corporations does nothing for the economy, because if they've got more money, they're not going to invest unless there is more people buying their products so they can make more money. That doesn't happen because nobody's got any money to spend. So you have to give the people the money to spend, and if they've got the money to spend, they will spend it. It will get back to the people at the top. It might take a little bit longer, but it will still get back to them. So this is where we need to change things. There need to be a lot more restrictions put on. Taxes need to go up. I don't think taxes on the low and middle class need to go up at all. They can pretty much stay where they are. In Australia, I think it's $18,000 a year you have to earn before you even pay tax. If you earn less than that, you don't even pay any tax, which is a great system. It could even be higher. I'd argue now that it could be 30,000. After 30,000, then you can start paying, maybe 20%, and structure it up again, a progressive tax rate. But once you're into the 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, you should be paying a sizable amount of your income back to society, because that's where it comes from. You're still going to be rich. Don't worry. Don't get scared. You're going to have lots of money. You can buy everything you want, but you might just not quite have enough. Instead of Jeff Bezos having $149 billion, he might only have $50 billion. I'm sure the poor darling will survive. He'll still be able to buy his beach house in Malibu. He'll still be able to buy his yacht. Won't be a problem. So, but that money, that rest of that money, that $99 billion will be back in the economy, stimulating spending and stimulating growth. And that's what needs to happen. The enemy is not the illegal workers. The enemy is not the immigrants. The enemy is not the poor people. The bad people, they're not stopping you from getting a better job. They're not stopping you from earning more money. They're not making your life miserable. They're not committing crimes endlessly to fund whatever lavish lifestyle people try to think that they're doing. It's just not happening. Okay? You're being lied to. Get this through your head. You are being lied to. The enemy is the capitalist system, and the system needs to change. The politicians need to go, because the ones that are in power in the majority of the countries around the world are, to a degree, corrupt, and they are not working for the people who voted them. If your politician is not working for you, stop voting for them. Just because they're the Democratic Party or the Republican Party and you're a Democrat or Republican, actually have a look at what they're doing. Is the politician that's doing it, are they voting for things that are in your interests? Or are they voting for the wealthy? If they're voting for the wealthy, stop voting for them. Why are you giving them your vote? It's the only opportunity you have to fight for what is rightfully yours, so that you can have an opportunity, so your family has an opportunity, so that people have a future. This is how we do it. It has to be done through the ballot box. We have to do it through protests. We have to do it through our votes. We have to get rid of the people who are not working for us. Okay, a lot to think about there. It was a lot longer than I expected, but thank you for listening. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you again soon.